Hi, everybody. Professor Albert here. I'm going to read to you Post-American World by Zakaria. I'm doing this in an effort to help you with your reading. If any of you are having difficulty with any of this material, you've certainly got the reading sheet that will help you with the quizzes and will help you with the basic understanding, but I can understand if you want some additional help, this may be useful to you, and I'd appreciate any feedback on whether or not anybody's using this. So here we go. We'll start with Chapter 1, The Rise of the Rest. Very brief, six-page chapter, really an introduction. He starts out by saying this is a book not about the decline of America, but about the rise of everyone else. And that's really his thesis, is that the rest of the world is developing economically and culturally and even politically and militarily so that the U.S. becomes not so much the single and sole superpower, but one very powerful nation amongst many very powerful nations. He begins by saying there have been three important power shifts in history. The first he describes as the rise of the West, and he'll go into that some more, but it begins in the 15th century. So if you think about Columbus coming to America at the end of the 15th century, 1492, that's the period at the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the modern era when science and technology and exploration and other things come together to create a very powerful set of countries in Europe. The second is at the top of page 2. He says the second shift, which took place in the closing years of the 19th century, was the rise of the United States. So right around 1900, the U.S. is becoming the most powerful country in the world. He doesn't actually tell us anything more about that here, so he'll come back to that later. And he says we're now living through the third great power shift in the modern era, and it could be called the rise of the rest. And now he's going to give us some details, some facts to support his argument that this is indeed the rise of the rest. He says there's 124 countries in 2006 and 2007 that grew at a rate of 4% or more. In other words, their economies were expanding very rapidly, including more than 30 countries in Africa, two-thirds of that continent. So a lot of people talk about the rise of China or the rise of India, and what he's saying is it's not just those two countries, although they're very important. It's all of the rest of the world that's rising. His next effort to convince us is by taking a look at a variety of technological feats. He says, look around, the tallest building in the world is now in Taipei. And he goes on to say that years ago, the United States would have had the tallest everything, the biggest everything, and now other places around the world have it. He then says, look, you might argue that really there's a lot of people still living in poverty, and how can I be talking about the rise of the rest and be so excited about the future? He says, actually, poverty's decreased fairly rapidly around the world. He says, in fact, the share of people living on $1 a day, and that figure, $1 a day, is the standard measure for extreme poverty. The people living on $1 a day plummeted from 40% in 1981 to 18% in 2004, and it's estimated to fall to 12% by 2015. A lot of that, he says, has to do with China, but he looks around the world and he sees a lot of positive things in that regard. A lot of people coming out of poverty. His next important point is on page 4. He says, power is shifting away from nation states, up, down, and sideways. In such an atmosphere, the traditional applications of national power, both economic and military, have become less effective. And this is where he's really speaking to an American audience, and he's telling us, and telling policymakers and anybody that will listen to him, that trying to use things like military power or even government and regulation and other things like that to shape the future, to control the events of the world, is increasingly ineffective, and that there are too many other very important and very powerful forces and organizations around the world. So he concludes by saying at a politico-military level, in terms of politics and in terms of our military, the United States are a single superpower. But in every other dimension, industrial, financial, educational, social, cultural, the distribution of power is shifting, moving away from American dominance. It does not mean we're becoming an anti-American world, but simply a post-American world. It's not that they love us or hate us, it's that they don't particularly care about us. And now he's asking us, to consider what that will mean and what that will be like. So on the next video here, I'll talk about Chapter 2, The Cup Runneth Over. Bye-bye.